How you going, brothers? And the occasional sister joining us today at the Broadcheck Club. I'm just in the garden doing a bit of work, and I thought I'd kill two birds with one stone and keep working and talking. Today's talk is about the greedy fairy. I've struggled with the greedy fairy most of my life. Who is the greedy fairy, and what does the greedy fairy do? The greedy fairy is a monster. It's the same little fairy that comes and lands on your shoulder, makes you eat when you're not hungry, makes you drink when you don't need drink, makes you have extra helpings of food when you don't need it, causes you have weight problems. The greedy fairy will hit you at night when you're just going to bed and you know you shouldn't eat, and you put something in your mouth. The greedy fairy also likes to spend money that it can't afford to spend. In fact, the greedy fairy is a prick, because the greedy fairy destroys your life. The greedy fairy will also make you want to have more love and more sex than you should have. You can be in a great relationship with a great woman, and the greedy fairy can come along and say, hey, how about that one over there? If you're weak, you'll listen to the greedy fairy and you'll give in to temptation. That's me. That's been me a lot of my life. I've struggled with the greedy fairy. And the greedy fairy likes certain things. It might say target sugar or refined carbohydrates, or one of my latest ones was too much fat and everything, or too much dairy, too much anything. The greedy fairy is not happy with what it's got. It always wants more, and the more you get for it, the more it wants. And the greedy fairy doesn't make you happy in the end. It gives you a little bit of pleasure as a reward for following it, and then it comes back and it bites you on the bum. It absolutely devastates your health, your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, your relationships. But I can tell you something, there's a few tricks I've learned about the greedy fairy. And the greedy fairy wants one thing: it wants dopamine. You can get that from gambling, from drinking, from drugs, from food, from smoking dope. And dopamine wants one more thing only, and that's more dopamine. So if you're struggling with a condition that's inflicted on you by the greedy fairy coming along in your life, you've got to starve it from that addiction. And this is what's worked for me. So let's take the problem I used to have with sugar in the old days. I developed a yeast infection. It's called candida in my stomach, and I get this candida. Just like making a bug of ginger beer, you've got to feed it sugar. And candida's the same, it wants more sugar. In order to get rid of the candida and the cravings, you've got to go cold turkey and have no sugar at all. You're going to say to the greedy fairy, fuck you, greedy fairy, you're not getting any more. And the greedy fairy is really good at tricking you. It's like, nah, he'll say, nah, oh, I don't want any more, it's okay. And then you're lying there in bed, and suddenly you get this craving. It's the greedy fairy. And you go, is that you, greedy fairy? He goes, no, I was asleep, you woke me up. It's like, no, that was you. You want some sugar, don't you? He's like, no, I don't want any more sugar. And you're having this battle going on, but then the greedy fairy tricks you, and you get up and you think, oh, a little bit won't hurt, just a wee bit. There's no such thing as a little bit when you're quitting something. You're either having nothing, or there's no grey area. You're quitting or you're not. The greedy fairy loves to always fool you with, hey, just have a little bit and you'll be sweet, mate. Never works. You ask an alcoholic that. You ask someone who's addicted to gambling. You ask someone who's addicted to pornography. So, in order for me to get rid of my candida, the yeast infection I had in my stomach, I had to go cold turkey on sugar. And it's just like going cold turkey on cigarettes or cold turkey on anything. The withdrawal symptoms are fucking horrible. Cold sweats in the night. You feel terrible, man. And you have these cravings that are just so hard to deal with. And the greedy fairy does nothing at all to help you, because the greedy fairy wants one thing. It wants you to get back to your disease and be sick. And it wants to keep on eating, because the greedy fairy doesn't care about you at all. It gives no fucks whatsoever. The greedy fairy's a cunt. The greedy fairy, I hate the greedy fairy. Like, the greedy fairy will ruin your life. Like I said to you, I've battled with the greedy fairy my whole life. But as the years have gone on, I've learnt what the greedy fairy's got to be done. It's got to be starved to death. Because eventually, if you don't feed him, eventually he dies. And that takes one thing: willpower. If you starve the greedy fairy to death on one particular thing, he has another trick up his sleeve. You quit smoking, he suddenly finds something new. It might be you quit dope, you start smoking a cigarette. Or you stop womanizing and you start gambling, because the greedy fairy likes everything in excess because he's fucking greedy. That's the greedy fairy, mate. So you've got to be aware of it when you quit something, that you don't replace it with something equally as bad for yourself, because that can happen. The greedy fairy will disguise things. You think they're going to be good for you. Hey, we're not eating that sugar anymore and we quit smoking. Let's go running. That's healthy. And suddenly, guess what? You do a little bit of running and you're happy with yourself. The greedy fairy goes, oh, I kind of like this. I kind of like the running, because when I run, I get a wee bit of a dopamine hit from the endorphins. I like this. And because of your greedy fairy in there, you start excessively running, and after a while you start to get fit. But your body's not used to running. It's not used to running because you haven't been running before. And guess what? You develop shin splints after about 5 or 6 weeks because you've done too much running. Your body got fit, but your body wasn't conditioned for it. And then you get an injury. Or you go to the gym and the greedy fairy does the same thing. You start getting fit and you start training, but guess what? You're not conditioned for it, and you tear your shoulder doing bench press too much. So be aware of the greedy fairy. It replaces one thing or another, and it still ends up hurting you. Got to go steady. That's why I finish every video up with the Brochik Club with the words "go steady," because that's exactly what you need. Balance. I've learnt the hard way. My shoulder's buggered. I've had shin splints. I've done all that. Not everyone's going to learn by old Clay's mistakes, but I can at least share them with you in the hopes that you do. But no expectations that you'll listen. I wouldn't blame you. You might be lucky. You might not have a greedy fairy in your life. You might be sweet as, bro. I'm going to move the camera a little bit so I can see you while I'm working. I have to shout because I'm quite far away, eh? It's not ideal. But there's only so many hours in a day to make videos and do stuff and talk to you guys, and I want to finish this off. I've been working on this patch a while now. Actually, I don't know why I don't just bloody well do this. Bring us up to where I'm working like this. I don't need to muck around. I'll pause and set it up where I'm be a lot more sense. This makes a lot more sense than the bloody shout. Be a terrible video. Sorry about all shouting, but I'm so far away. I know how the audio works. So, with the greedy fairy doesn't differentiate between, say, too much sugar or too much marijuana. The greedy fairy just wants that dopamine hit, as I said before, and so you can be fooled into things that you normally wouldn't even do because the greedy fairy likes it. You don't like it, but the greedy fairy likes what it produces. Scrolling on your phone, you get all these little pictures of things happening. It's really cool. That's another form of dopamine. I've talked about that. So the more you scroll, the more dopamine you get, and that's what the algorithm works on. It wants you to become addicted. The algorithm loves the greedy fairy because they work hand in hand. The more clicks they get, the more advertising revenue, the longer you watch on it, and the algorithm, it uses you, so you become a slave, and you don't even realize it. You're actually a slave to a system that makes money. It's not giving you the money. You're the client, you're the customer, you're the consumer. You're consuming all the stuff, and the longer you stay on that app, and there's little subtle advertisings going on that you're not even aware of. Mate, the greedy fairy, it loves to trap you into that one, and you don't even realize you're caught into it. You're sitting there, you might be trying to escape some bad feelings or avoid some work you've got to do or some responsibilities, and you're sitting there scrolling and you've got so much more important stuff to do, like get out in your garden and get all the weeds out or run your dogs or 1,000 jobs, but no, you're scrolling away. So the greedy fury is also a massive time waster. The sooner you can get the greedy fury and go, fuck off, mate, the better your life is. How do you do it? It's recognising who the greedy fury is in you. It's taken me forever. And one thing I've learned is that pleasure doesn't bring any happiness at all. The pleasure of sex or the pleasure of a dopamine hit, it doesn't bring happiness. Don't get confused by that. No, happiness is seeing the joy in someone's eyes that you love. Joy is, don't be confused with like getting a massive fish or going out and catching a massive boar, hunting or shooting that 12-pointer stag. That'll give you a rush for a while. You will always return to your normal miserable self if you're a miserable person. But joy, that's created by other things, which is not to be confused with pleasure. The pleasure of dopamine. See, the greedy fury doesn't really like joy. You don't get addicted to it. Joy is something that you have moments of. And it could be the smallest thing in your day. It could be waking up in the morning, standing with a cup of coffee and watching the sun come up. Or it could be your dad smiling at you and saying, well done, son. Or it could be your mother doing that. It could be the person that you love suddenly just at that moment doing something that's from their heart that's really beautiful. It could be your dog just giving your dog like a pat, seeing it wag its tail, giving it a hug. But these things are healthy. They don't create a big rush of dopamine in your system. These are things that are natural and normal. The trouble with the greedy fury is the more dopamine that you have, whether you're scrolling on your phone or you're excessively doing anything, it actually stops us being able to have those little moments of joy because we don't get them anymore because we're always wanting a lot more. As a YouTuber, I discovered a while ago when these apps came out, particularly TikTok, but also they do on Instagram and Facebook, I noticed watching the analytics that people, particularly the younger generation, stopped watching my full videos and just scrolling to the main part, or what they thought was the main part. Maybe it was the pig hunt, and they'd completely bypass the whole story and just go straight to the part where we catch the pig, and completely then they'd miss out the entire story because they couldn't follow the narrative. They couldn't follow the story at all. It's just impossible for them because their brain has to have instant gratification all the time. So the greedy fury robs you of some of the most precious things in this world. And life is about stories. You've got your own story. Imagine if you're telling somebody your story that's your whole life. And they go, no, shut up, just get to the bit where you nearly died. Or shut up, just get to the bit where you got married. It's really, really important to get on top of the greedy fury. So, how do you do it? What do you do? It involves one thing I talk about a lot. It involves self-discipline, and that's it in a nutshell. You've got to have self-discipline. You've got to starve the greedy fury. That means the things that you think that I got to have my cup of coffee, or I've got to have this. If you're drinking 3 or 4 cups or 5 cups of coffee a day, and you're frying your adrenal glands and you're suffering from adrenal fatigue, you know you've got to get your coffee down to 1 coffee a day, or maybe even go decaf and knock it on the head. So stop the sentences, change the narrative, change the conversation in your head. Not I got to have it, I'm going to stop it because it's making me sick. It's a better narrative, better story to have. If you're overweight, very easy to lose weight if you look at the mechanics of it. It's not about just calories in, calories out either. So get rid of that one. That's bullshit. It's about what you put into your body. I guarantee you, if you eat leafy green vegetables, a hand-sized bit of fish or a hand-sized bit of meat, just enough in your palm of your hand, lots of leafy vegetables, good grains. I'm not talking about diet in general. I'm just saying if you get rid of sugar and refined carbohydrates. It doesn't matter actually what diet on. Just get rid of sugar and refined carbohydrates. You get rid of those two, you'll be sweet as, bro. You'll lose weight. But that there again means that the greedy fairy misses out on all the fat, and the salt, and the sugar in large quantities. Doesn't get to have it anymore. And that requires discipline. That's the only way. That's the only way you can do it. So today's video is about the greedy fairy. I've rattled on enough. It's time for me to. I don't know what I'm going to do. Oh, I'm taking a young lady fishing today. Who's been fighting the black dog. I don't normally look after women, but she came to me. Her dad watches me on the channel. She came down to the farmhouse today, and I can see she's wanting to make a change. Well, I thought, yeah, I'll take you out. Bloody good. I like people that are moving ahead, and I wanted to go fishing today anyway, and Damo's busy taking a young fella out, so I thought I'd take her out for a fish. I hope this video is giving you something to think about. The whole idea of the Bro Check channel is to check on each other, but mostly to check on ourselves, that we're doing everything the best we can to ensure that our existence here is as good as we can make it. And if you're really going through a real tough patch, like real tough, where it's just difficult to talk to people and you're suffering either anxiety or depression and it's really difficult, then please always seek professional help. I mean that. Get someone who's really, like, talk to a professional about it, because life is too short to have an unwellness, whatever it is, to go through life with it unchecked. It's easier said than done. I know you don't feel like talking to anybody when you're feeling like shit, but that's probably the most critical time to do. Hey Super Duck, this is the Bro Check Club. I'm Clay. I hope you're having a good day wherever you are. Thanks for hearing us out, and check on the greedy fairy in your life. And if you do have a greedy fairy in your life, get rid of that bastard. Don't be a slave to the greedy fairy. Believe me, your life will be a lot better if you can get rid of the bastard. Go steady. See you in the next one. See ya. Right, I'm going to set up some rods and reels for this young lady. Some good bastard called David's Fishing in Australia. Sent us 2 reels out. I gave one to Damo. The other one's for my son, but I'll use my son's today. See you later.